Just after the election in December, Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg talked about the responsibility he felt for how his platform is used, and then he added this.
We're an important part of the public discourse, and reflecting on 2016, this is just something that I am proud that people in this company take this so seriously, because I know that people in our community are, we're just a small part of the social fabric around the world, but we are a part of that, and I think we do have a big responsibility to get that right and to keep on doing better and better.
A big responsibility, he said, for the small part they play in democracy. Then we learned all about the Russian operatives buying ads in rubles. We learned about the lack of controls to deal with fake news. And this week, a report you may not have heard yet, we're learning about racial discrimination supplied through Facebook. A special report from Mark Zuckerberg on this topic next.
You're watching MSNBC International. When the world hopes.
How many people have you rescued?
When the world cries.
They've been holding hostages as human shields.
When it erupts.
This is Britain's 4th terror attack in as many months.
Or holds its breath.
How does the U.S. de-escalate against Kim Jong-un?
Our journalists will be there.
There are no local stories. You pull up the threads of some local headline, there's almost always something bigger. What you see from your own front porch, it turns out to be the story of all of us. And these are stories worth telling.
Tomorrow's headlines, before they go to print.
I've just been handed some great reporting.
The 11th Hour with Brian Williams. Weeknights on MSNBC.
We're not covering this, all right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm done with the Paris Hilton story.
What happened there was we realized that if you tell people that something is news and it's not news, they're insulted. And for the first time, people were like, yes, that's right. That's not news. Thank you.
And the next thing you knew, there were like 5 million YouTube hits. And this thing just completely exploded.
I talked to a lot of people, many of them fighting mad. It's a divided country, people ready to go toe-to-toe on each and every issue. And it's not going to change anytime soon. I like a political fight as much as anybody. But are we going to get to some decisions or just keep fighting?
Are there rules anymore for our politics? And if so, will anybody play by them? These days, politics could use a little refereeing. And we're not afraid to blow the whistle.
Before it was the biggest political scandal in history, before it lent its name to every other scandal for 40 years, it was just an office building, the Watergate. What happened here changed history because there were reporters who never stopped asking questions. For my generation, the questions were about WMDs in Iraq, and we learned, again, don't just accept the official line. Now, who knows where the questions will take us, but I do know this. I'm not going to stop asking them.
You disagree with me ideologically.
I do.
You talk about political correctness run amok.
This is about human rights. Do not go there. Does anyone want to challenge me on that?
Morning Joe, weekdays on MSNBC. The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, only on MSNBC.
Facebook is one of the most famous and respected companies in the world. The criticism it has faced in the past few months over its approach to Russian meddling and fake news is probably one of the rougher periods for this celebrated company. A New York Times column noting this week that companies like Google and Facebook are seeing the mood has shifted, as some now believe tech is like the tobacco industry, corporations that make billions peddling a destructive addiction. Is this criticism hitting home? Not yet, really. Facebook's current stock price is at a record high, worth almost 5 times its debut price. The markets are not telling Facebook to do anything different, even as I would argue 3 big criticisms are emerging across the spectrum. The first is that Facebook doesn't just want you to connect. It wants you to crave those connections. Facebook stokes just about anything that meets that profitable craving. As a platform, they don't care if news is real or propaganda is from Russia, so long as you keep clicking. And then there's also the idea that Facebook's targeting is maddeningly one-sided. They use the data to target all of us with precision, but we know very little about them. This is transparency for the masses and privacy for our corporate leaders. As early as 2005, Mark Zuckerberg was touting his micro-targeting.
So people from Harvard can get specific stuff, both functionality and, I guess, advertising that's targeted to people at Harvard. And we have so much data about what people are doing on the site and how people are using it that it just makes it so that we can really enhance the experience and target stuff towards those people in ways that no one else has really been able to do before.
Targeting is an enhanced and new innovation. Like any tool, it can be used in many ways. But from Russia to fake news to cultivating censorship abroad, we've been reporting on how Facebook seems pretty blasé about how its tools are used until they get caught. At which point, the company assures everyone it's learned and will change, and that's a pattern we've seen several times just this year, including when top exec Sheryl Sandberg said last month Facebook does not allow racial targeting for discrimination.
We allow targeting to different groups, different ethnic groups, different races, different religions. There are times when you shouldn't, and we take this really seriously. We do not allow targeting on financial loans or, things that are discriminatory, but there are times people make products for one group and not another.
Now that sounds reasonable in theory. Facebook allows you to make a page, say, promoting a Jewish holiday event for Jews, but it doesn't allow you to use Facebook to bar Jews from renting an apartment in your building. This rule isn't Facebook's idea, by the way. It was back in the days after the assassination of Martin Luther King that Congress passed a law, the Fair Housing Act of 1968, barring any housing ads that use discrimination based on race, color, religion, and other qualities. Now, last year, the public interest news group ProPublica ran a test to see if Facebook was complying with that law. Facebook failed, and they promised to fix it. And being dogged journalists, ProPublica just ran that test again, and this week they found Facebook still allows housing advertisers to exclude users with those illegal factors, discriminating by race and religion. Now, ProPublica created a model housing company and asked Facebook to place ads discriminating against minorities like African Americans, Asian Americans, and Hispanics. Their ad was approved, as was an ad targeting Jews and Muslims. If all of this sounds familiar, it is. Just 2 months ago, Facebook was also busted for placing ads targeting people who identified as, quote, Jew haters, for example. Now, some of that kind of targeting is actually still lawful in the U.S. So unlike the housing problem, the only solution would be that Facebook self-polices if it chooses to. So what is Facebook saying this week after getting busted for the same targeting discrimination that they got busted for last year? Well, they admit this is a, quote, failure in our enforcement. They call it a technical failure. Okay, guys, everyone in Silicon Valley already knows that if a tech giant keeps making the same mistake over and over and over, at a certain point, it's not a technical failure. Facebook didn't get where it is today by repeatedly failing to fix its technical problems. And when it comes to enabling discrimination, the question for Mark Zuckerberg, again, is the same question for catching fake news or for stopping Russian propaganda. If you really want to stop it on Facebook, why don't you make it stop? Now, Mark is brilliant, and smart people don't usually defend the indefensible in public, which is why Facebook admits faults, then turns the conversation to other topics, like freedom and society. And in Silicon Valley, profits are often defended in the guise of free speech.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're going to catch all bad content in our system. We don't check what people say before they say it, and frankly, I don't think society should want us to. Freedom means you don't have to ask for permission first, and that by default, you can say what you want.
Keep talking to us about freedom. Our report today, though, is about racial discrimination on Facebook that might be illegal. Facebook insists these failures, though, now have become so important that Mark Zuckerberg will put security above his profits.
We're investing so much in security that it's actually going to significantly impact the profitability of the company.
Here's the real bad news, though. The conflict may lie at the core of Facebook's business model. A former company manager there said they will avoid any changes that would hurt the business of collecting and selling data. And that data is what makes the ad sell. Mark Zuckerberg said back in April 2010, there are no real changes coming for that model.
Right now we serve ads on Facebook.com. So that's the business model. It's working really well for us. No real changes here.
No real changes here. Facebook will keep targeting ads and clicks in the most profitable way they can. When they get caught over the line, they will downplay it or blame the tech or promise to do better. But there are no real changes here, Mark says. And so while Facebook does not technically charge customers directly, its high costs are becoming more obvious as Facebook's eagerness to invoke neutrality and freedom as a defense to discrimination or censorship or collusion gets exposed. Users are going to have to assess this price because it demonstrates a very old saying in tech circles. If you're not paying for it, you're not the customer, you are the product being sold. And if Mark has turned all of us users into a product, it may explain how he treats us.